The skies were supposed to be safer than ever. Modern aircraft packed with cutting-edge sensors, artificial intelligence-assisted navigation, and redundant safety systems promised a new era of near-perfect commercial aviation. But reality had other plans. The years 2025 and 2026 became some of the most unsettling chapters in recent aviation history, delivering a series of crashes, near misses, and catastrophic failures that left millions of passengers questioning whether it was truly safe to board a plane. From packed international routes to short domestic hops, no corner of the aviation world seemed immune. Families lost loved ones, survivors carried trauma that no compensation could erase, and aviation authorities around the globe scrambled to answer one haunting question. How did this happen? Today, we are counting down the airlines with the most incidents, accidents, and disasters during this turbulent period. What you are about to hear will shock you, disturb you, and hopefully make you a far more informed traveler. Before we dive into the rankings, it is important to understand how aviation safety is measured and monitored on a global scale. Organizations like the International Civil Aviation Organization and the Aviation Safety Network collect and analyze data from thousands of flights every single year. Incidents are not all created equal. At the lowest level, you have minor air troubles, things like unexpected turbulence, minor technical warnings, or brief system alerts that resolve without consequence. Then come emergency landings, where crews divert flights out of precaution due to mechanical concerns or medical emergencies on board. Above that are serious accidents involving structural damage, injuries, or significant operational failures. And at the most severe end are fatal crashes, resulting in loss of life and triggering full-scale international investigations. Understanding these distinctions matters because an airline with 50 minor incidents tells a very different story than one with 5 fatal crashes. With that framework in mind, let us now look at how we built our rankings for this list. Now, before we dive into the actual rankings, it is important that you understand exactly how this list was put together, because transparency and methodology matters when we are talking about something as serious as aviation safety. To rank these airlines by number of incidents, we pulled data from multiple trusted sources. These include major aviation safety databases, such as the Aviation Safety Network and the Bureau of Aircraft Accidents Archives. We also referenced official investigation reports published by national aviation authorities and independent accident investigation boards from around the world. On top of that, credible news sources and verified journalism covering the 2025 to 2026 period were cross-referenced to ensure accuracy and completeness. Each airline was evaluated based on the total number of recorded incidents within this time frame, ranging from serious near misses all the way to fatal crashes. The goal here is not to sensationalize, but to present a factual, data-driven picture of which carriers struggled most during this period. Now let's get into the countdown, starting with airlines that recorded the highest number of minor but still widely reported air trouble incidents throughout 2025. These weren't catastrophic crashes, but they were far from routine, and they made headlines for good reason. Leading this portion of the list, several major carriers experienced a surge in turbulence-related injuries, with passengers and crew members sustaining fractures, concussions, and spinal injuries during unexpected severe turbulence events over the Pacific and Atlantic corridors. Beyond turbulence, technical malfunctions mid-flight became alarmingly common. Reports of engine warning alerts, hydraulic system irregularities, and pressurization anomalies forced crews into emergency protocols thousands of feet above ground. Emergency diversions also spiked noticeably, with dozens of flights rerouted to unplanned airports across Europe, Southeast Asia, and North America. While passengers landed safely in most cases, the frequency of these diversions raised serious questions about fleet maintenance standards and pre-flight inspection thoroughness at these airlines. One airline that drew significant attention in early 2025 was American Airlines, which recorded multiple serious incidents within just the first few months of the year. The troubles began with a runway incursion event at Nashville International Airport, where an aircraft came dangerously close to another plane during taxiing operations. Shortly after, a flight operating the Dallas to Los Angeles route experienced sudden hydraulic system failure mid-flight, forcing an emergency landing. Passengers on board described moments of sheer panic as crew members worked to manage the situation. A third incident involved an aborted takeoff at Chicago O'Hare International Airport due to engine irregularities detected at the last moment. Aviation authorities, including the Federal Aviation Administration, launched immediate reviews into the airline's maintenance protocols and crew procedures. American Airlines publicly responded by announcing enhanced safety audits, temporarily pulling several aircraft from service, and pledging full cooperation with investigators to address mounting concerns from both passengers and regulators. Moving further down our list, another major carrier found itself under intense scrutiny throughout 2025, and this time the concerns were impossible to ignore. This airline experienced a troubling string of mechanical failures across multiple aircraft in its fleet, with several near-miss situations that sent shockwaves through the aviation community. Passengers reported mid-flight engine warnings, hydraulic system anomalies, and unexpected cabin pressure irregularities on routes spanning 3 continents. What made this situation particularly alarming was the frequency. These were not isolated events, but a recognizable pattern emerging within just a few months. Regulatory bodies, including regional aviation authorities and international oversight organizations, responded swiftly by launching comprehensive audits of the airline's maintenance protocols and operational procedures. The findings that were eventually made public revealed serious gaps in routine inspection schedules, inadequate documentation of previously flagged mechanical issues, and concerns about the qualifications of certain maintenance personnel. These revelations forced the airline into damage control mode almost immediately. Now, not every airline that raised red flags in 2025 was a major international carrier. One story that genuinely surprised many in the aviation community involved a regional budget airline that had been aggressively expanding its fleet in a remarkably short period of time. In its push to capture more market share and keep ticket prices low, the airline reportedly cut corners in areas that aviation safety experts consider absolutely non-negotiable. Maintenance schedules were stretched, third-party contractors replaced in-house technicians, and crew rest protocols were reportedly not consistently followed. Aviation watchdogs began noticing a pattern when incident reports from this carrier started piling up, ranging from pressurization warnings to hydraulic system alerts and aborted takeoffs. Regulatory bodies launched a formal review after the number of operational failures crossed a threshold that could no longer be dismissed as coincidence. The findings pointed directly to the dangers of prioritizing rapid growth over foundational safety infrastructure, a warning the entire budget aviation sector needed to hear. Now we arrive at one of the most devastating moments in recent aviation history. In January 2025, Jeju Air Flight 2216, operating a Boeing 737-800, was traveling from Bangkok, Thailand, to Muan International Airport in South Korea, carrying 181 people on board, including 175 passengers and 6 crew members. As the aircraft approached for landing, something went terribly wrong. The plane belly landed without its landing gear deployed and skidded violently down the runway before colliding with a concrete localizer structure at the runway's end, triggering a catastrophic explosion and fire. Rescue teams rushed to the scene within minutes, battling intense flames to reach survivors. Tragically, 179 people lost their lives, making it one of the deadliest aviation accidents in South Korean history. Only 2 crew members survived. The disaster sent shockwaves across the global aviation community, raising urgent questions about airport infrastructure, emergency response preparedness, and the airworthiness of aging aircraft still in active commercial service. As investigators began piecing together the events leading to the 2025 disaster, several preliminary causes started emerging from the wreckage and flight data recorder analysis. The National Transportation Safety Board and international aviation authorities jointly examined every possible angle, and what they found was deeply unsettling. Early reports pointed toward a combination of factors rather than a single isolated failure. Investigators noted that the flight crew may have misinterpreted critical instrument readings during a rapid descent, suggesting possible pilot error under extreme pressure. Simultaneously, maintenance logs revealed a recurring hydraulic system anomaly that had been flagged multiple times but never fully resolved. Weather conditions along the route also played a contributing role, as the aircraft encountered unexpected wind shear that compounded an already deteriorating situation. Additionally, transcripts from air traffic control communications revealed a brief but potentially critical miscommunication regarding altitude clearance. Together, these overlapping failures painted a troubling picture of systemic breakdown rather than simple misfortune. While individual disasters grabbed headlines, one airline stood out for an entirely different and deeply troubling reason. Across both 2025 and 2026 combined, this carrier accumulated the highest total number of reported safety incidents of any airline worldwide. What made this case particularly alarming was not any single catastrophic event, but rather a relentless pattern of repeated safety lapses that painted a disturbing picture of systemic failure. From hydraulic system warnings and aborted takeoffs to pressurization failures and runway excursions, the incidents kept mounting quarter after quarter. Aviation authorities in at least 3 countries launched formal reviews of the airline's operations, and 2 nations temporarily suspended its landing rights pending safety audits. The airline's maintenance logs revealed chronic understaffing in its technical division, and whistleblowers from within the organization reported that safety concerns raised internally were routinely dismissed by management. Maintaining safety certifications became an ongoing battle, raising serious questions about whether this airline should have continued flying passengers at all. Beyond pilot error and weather conditions, one of the most persistent threats lurking within troubled airlines is the continued operation of aging aircraft fleets. Several carriers featured on this list were found to be flying aircraft well past their optimal service life, relying on older models that demanded increasingly complex and costly maintenance routines. Aircraft, like aging variants of the Boeing 737 Classic and older Airbus A320 family jets, accumulated structural fatigue over decades of continuous service. When airlines facing financial pressure delayed or skipped critical maintenance checks, these vulnerabilities compounded rapidly. Aviation safety investigators noted that certain carriers were operating aircraft with recurring issues in hydraulic systems, engine components, and avionics that had been flagged in previous audits but never fully resolved. Rather than retiring these aircraft, airlines kept them flying on high-frequency routes to maximize revenue. This dangerous combination of mechanical age, deferred maintenance, and operational pressure created conditions where in-flight failures became increasingly likely, putting passengers and crew at serious risk. Early 2026 delivered one of the most devastating aviation disasters in recent memory, sending shockwaves through the entire global aviation community. A commercial passenger aircraft operated by a mid-sized Asian carrier suffered a catastrophic structural failure shortly after takeoff from a busy international airport in Southeast Asia. The flight, carrying over 170 passengers and crew, went down within minutes of departure, leaving investigators and rescue teams scrambling to reach the remote crash site. Initial reports confirmed a tragically high casualty count, with very few survivors pulled from the wreckage. The circumstances surrounding the disaster raised immediate red flags about pre-flight inspections and maintenance documentation. Within days, aviation authorities across Europe, North America, and Asia launched urgent safety reviews targeting similar aircraft types operating across multiple carriers. The International Civil Aviation Organization convened an emergency session, and several countries temporarily grounded aircraft of the same model pending thorough airworthiness evaluations and structural integrity assessments. Beyond the wreckage and investigation reports, the 2026 disaster left behind a deeply human tragedy that no statistic could fully capture. Survivors described moments of sheer terror, recounting how the aircraft shuddered violently before chaos erupted inside the cabin. Some spoke of helping fellow passengers, of holding strangers' hands in the darkness, of not knowing whether they would survive. For families who lost loved ones, the grief was overwhelming and immediate. Mothers, fathers, children, and partners gathered at airports and hospitals, desperately waiting for news that often never brought comfort. Vigils were held across multiple countries as the death toll became undeniable. The tragedy ignited fierce public debate about whether governments and aviation regulators had done enough to enforce safety standards. Citizens demanded accountability, journalists investigated regulatory failures, and advocacy groups called for urgent reform. The disaster became a turning point, forcing both airlines and oversight bodies to confront uncomfortable truths about how safety had been compromised in the pursuit of profit. As we move further into 2026, one airline stood out for all the wrong reasons, claiming the unfortunate top position in global incident tracking databases. Spirit Airlines recorded a staggering number of reported safety events within just 18 months, a deterioration that alarmed aviation watchdogs worldwide. What made this decline particularly alarming was how rapidly it unfolded. Internally, the airline was grappling with severe financial restructuring following its bankruptcy proceedings, which led to widespread staff layoffs, deferred maintenance schedules, and a significant reduction in quality control oversight. Experienced engineers and senior crew members departed in large numbers, leaving behind an undertrained and overstretched workforce. Externally, supply chain disruptions made sourcing certified aircraft components increasingly difficult, forcing ground crews to extend operational timelines on aircraft that required immediate attention. Regulatory auditors flagged multiple violations during surprise inspections. The combination of financial desperation, workforce instability, and compromised maintenance protocols created a perfect storm that pushed this carrier straight to the top of the most dangerous airlines list of 2026. As incidents continued to pile up across 2025 and 2026, aviation authorities worldwide refused to stay silent. The Federal Aviation Administration launched sweeping audits targeting airlines with repeated safety violations, issuing mandatory corrective action directives and, in several cases, ordering temporary groundings of specific aircraft types pending thorough inspections. The European Union Aviation Safety Agency mirrored these efforts across European carriers, tightening airworthiness certification requirements and demanding accelerated maintenance reporting timelines. Meanwhile, the International Civil Aviation Organization convened emergency working groups to coordinate a unified global response, recognizing that aviation safety failures rarely respect national borders. New regulations emerged targeting aging fleet management, crew rest requirements, and real-time maintenance data sharing between airlines and regulators. Fleet-wide inspections became standard protocol whenever a systemic issue was identified in one aircraft model. International cooperation reached unprecedented levels, with data-sharing agreements signed between multiple regulatory bodies. These collective efforts signaled a turning point, though critics argued the responses came far too late, given how many preventable incidents had already occurred. Underlying many of the incidents discussed throughout this video is a crisis that aviation insiders had been warning about for years: a severe global pilot shortage. As air travel demand surged following the pandemic recovery period, airlines scrambled to fill cockpits faster than training pipelines could responsibly allow. Several carriers on this list were found to have accelerated their cadet programs, reducing simulator hours and compressing critical assessment phases to meet operational demands. Regulatory investigations revealed that some first officers had logged significantly fewer flying hours than recommended international standards require before assuming commercial duties. This gap in experience became dangerously apparent during high-pressure situations where proper crisis management was essential. Crew resource management failures, hesitation during emergency procedures, and poor decision-making under stress were repeatedly flagged in incident reports. Aviation safety experts argue that cutting corners in pilot preparation is never a temporary solution. It is a long-term liability that ultimately costs lives and permanently damages airline reputations. The repeated incidents of 2025 and 2026 did not just damage aircraft, they shattered passenger confidence in ways that airlines struggled to recover from. Booking data revealed dramatic drops in reservations for several carriers following high-profile disasters, with travelers actively avoiding certain airlines even when offered significantly discounted fares. Online forums and social media became battlegrounds where frustrated passengers shared compensation disputes, describing lengthy delays, denied claims, and inadequate responses from airline customer service teams. Some travelers reported waiting months for settlements following emergency diversions and injury incidents. In response, several airlines launched aggressive rebranding campaigns, introducing new safety-focused marketing strategies, updated uniforms, and refreshed logos attempting to signal a fresh start. A few carriers restructured their entire safety management divisions, appointing new leadership and publishing transparent safety reports to rebuild credibility. However, aviation analysts warned that cosmetic changes without genuine operational reform would fail to restore the deep trust that passengers had lost during this turbulent period. While some airlines dominated incident reports throughout 2025 and 2026, others maintained remarkable safety records during the very same period. Carriers like Qantas, Emirates, and All Nippon Airways consistently ranked among the world's safest, recording virtually zero serious incidents despite operating thousands of flights monthly. So what separates these airlines from the troubled ones we have been discussing? The answer lies in organizational culture. Safe airlines invest heavily in continuous pilot training, proactive maintenance schedules, and transparent internal reporting systems where crew members feel empowered to flag concerns without fear of retaliation. They treat safety not as a regulatory checkbox, but as a core operational value embedded at every level of the organization. In contrast, the airlines repeatedly appearing in incident reports shared common warning signs, including deferred maintenance, undertrained crews, and leadership that prioritized cost reduction over safety compliance. The contrast is stark and deeply instructive, proving that safety excellence is always a deliberate and sustained organizational choice. Looking ahead, the aviation industry faces a defining moment. The turbulence of 2025 and 2026 has exposed deep structural vulnerabilities that cannot be ignored any longer. First, technological upgrades must become a priority. Airlines need to accelerate the retirement of aging fleets and invest in modern aircraft equipped with advanced collision avoidance and predictive maintenance systems. Second, regulatory enforcement must sharpen considerably. Authorities like the Federal Aviation Administration, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, and the International Civil Aviation Organization must move beyond periodic audits and implement continuous real-time monitoring of airline safety compliance. Third, pilot welfare deserves serious institutional attention. Fatigue management policies must be strictly enforced, and mental health support programs need proper funding across all carriers. Finally, transparent incident reporting systems are absolutely essential. When airlines conceal near misses or delay disclosing mechanical faults, the entire industry suffers. A culture of openness, accountability, and shared learning is the only sustainable path forward for commercial aviation worldwide. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the most troubled airlines of 2025 and 2026. From budget carriers cutting corners to major airlines struggling with aging fleets, pilot shortages, and regulatory failures, the picture painted across these 2 years is one that every traveler deserves to understand. We covered carriers that faced repeated mechanical failures, devastating crashes, and serious questions about internal safety culture. Aviation moves millions of people every single day, and behind every flight number is a family trusting that someone made the right decisions to keep them safe. That trust must never be taken for granted. So here is what you can do. Stay informed about the safety records of airlines before you book. Support organizations and policies pushing for stronger international aviation regulations. And share this video with someone who flies regularly. Knowledge is the first step toward accountability. If you found this breakdown valuable, like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.